Oh, this is going to be one interesting show today. First of all, some of you are going to feel, I'm telling you, you're going to feel the call of God. It's like the draft, the NFL draft, or maybe it's the draft from the Pentagon. God's drafting some of you into an adventure you never expected. I'm talking about you're going to be involved with public service. Did I write this down where these offices are? Some of you are going to be called in to be involved with running for office. That's right. You're going to run for office, and it might be a city council, or it might be a school board, it might be a state legislator, because so many I'm hearing are hearing and feeling and answering the call of God, and the doors are opening. You don't want to miss today's show. But before I go there, I had a rather unusual experience. You probably shouldn't talk about these things, right? Because the Bible says, you know, when you're doing something that's nice, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. But I'm going to tell you the story. I did the Courage Tour last week. We were with Mario Murillo, thousands of people in Michigan, I think arguably the best yet. And the presence of God was so strong, and yet it was a Reformation rally during the day. And they were rising up, mama bears are rising up, and people were getting involved with all kinds of engagement in Michigan at the government level. Believers united. It was exciting. Well, I went from there to Charleston, where there was the same thing happened with a group of leaders that were gathering together. But I remember when I was in Michigan, someone came up to me. You know, people, it's unusual how these things, they're supernatural in a way. A guy comes up to me and puts something in my hand. I shake his hand. And he tells me it's a gold Cougaran. It's a 1 ounce gold, piece. I look down, and it was. So I go on to Charleston, and I'm there. And what happens now is fascinating. A man comes up to me after we had just done a leadership meeting, and there was actually a protest. 20 protesters came, but it rained, and they quit. And then it was kind of unusual. The rain drove the protesters out, but then we still had our group come. So I ran into a guy from the military. He had done like 500 flights or something, but he was a really neat guy, and he's sharing with me about, his experience in the military. And the Lord reminds me about that coin. And this is how the call of God is. It's kind of like answering the call of God is like answering the call to give. It's unselfish and it's conviction. And I feel like the Lord says, hey, that gold ounce, give it to him. And the guy's giving me these military coins, like they have in the military. They're handing this guy, showing me what this coin is. And I'm feeling, okay, Lord, I don't have an attachment to it. I mean, do I still have it? It was in my briefcase still from the last trip, Michigan. I go dig through it. He just gave me one of his military coins, and I could just see his good spirit, good man. And the Lord says, give it to him. I thought, man, I'm going to feel so convicted if I leave this moment and don't obey God. I took that Troy ounce of silver or gold. It was gold. Took out that coin. And I thought, well, let me just look up its value. I was shocked. It's like $2,600 for that little gold ounce. $2,600, folks. Is that possible? I thought it was like $1,300, and my parents would give me one, my in-laws would give Annabelle and me one, for Christmas. And it was back then, it was like $300 an ounce. It can't be it's $500 for these coins. Anyway, I gave it to him. And I gave it to him. The reason I'm telling you the story is because it's expected that gold could go up to as high as 10,000. You're already seeing a rapid rise of global investment in currencies because America's lost its mind and our government is nuts. Therefore, they're self-destructing. They're like the Nero fiddling and burning down Rome. They're burning down our economy. $1 trillion of debt every 90 days. Not that I believe America is going to be destroyed. I believe we're going to rise up and do something. But till that happens, go to lancewallnau.com/gold and read why gold could go up to $2,000 an ounce or $10,000 an ounce, and why it is that it's a smart thing for you to do. If you got retirement money, you really want to put it in paper? You want to put it in that which is losing value? You want to move it over into the refrigerator, gold. And when you take it back out, it'll be worth much more than when you put it in. That's why gold has been, for thousands of years, the powerful option. LanceWallnau.com/gold, because that man now has something which can only increase in value. And so can you. Your retirement account, protected. All right, that's the word for the day. LanceWallnau.com/gold. But I want you to hear how to get into the call of God for your life right now. So welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. People are always asking me, Lance, what can I do? It's one of the weird frustrations that we all have, that you're watching a 5-alarm fire in your country, and you know that as an arsonist is starting it, and you also know there's more of you than there is of them, but you don't know how to mobilize because you're not in the fire department. This is the citizen army God's raising up. This is the populist movement. This is welcome to the Great Awakening during the consequential year of our life that's going to affect the nation and the world. What do? Well, I've got someone today that's going to finally bring clarity to a large part of that conversation. Dr. Richard Rogers serves as the America First Policy Institute National Director of Faith Engagement and is a senior fellow for the Center for American Values. National Director Richard Rogers, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Lance. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell me exactly what it is that a National Director of Faith Engagement does.
Well, we've identified that in this next election, that the election will literally come down to 19 counties, possibly 20 counties here in the United States. Those 19 counties come from 9 different states. And basically, my job is to get into those counties, to get into those states, build relationships with the pastors here, gather the pastors, go to where pastors are gathering, and talk to them about how that they can be involved in this, not in the political sense, but in terms of speaking about the values, speaking about the biblical foundations for the issues that are at stake in this election. And so my job is to get out there, help them understand the urgency to vote, help them understand how every single little inch matters. When we lost states by 10,000 votes or less in the last election in 2020, and other states by margins that are so doable. Meanwhile, over 300,000 or 400,000 Christians stayed home and didn't vote. The urgency for Christians to get in the game, especially men, especially gun owners, and especially senior citizens, any one of those, if they really got in the game, would have swayed 4 to 5 states in the 2020 election.
All right, so let's slow down and talk about this. First of all, as a media guy, I'm worried that if I focus on pastors, how many pastors do I have watching me? Listen, if they're watching me, they're on the same page. I don't have the target audience watching me, is what I'm trying to tell you, because I think I scare them. But I do want the people to hear what you have to say, because you, ladies and gentlemen, who go to that church, wherever that church is, and we're on Real America's Voice on Sunday, so I'm probably catching some, spiritually lively people. You can get your pastor involved. And that's where I want to go next, because the churches are not involved. And I think it's 350,000 churches in America. Jim Garlow once told me 1/3 of them are evangelical or something like that, biblical worldview, but even out of them, it's a small percentage. Anyway, it's not as many churches as you think. And that means that every church makes a difference. So how does a person approach their pastor, Richard? What's a good way to help engage the pastor so that they don't feel besieged upon by a MAGA patriot?
I think the first thing they can do is they can go to their pastor and give them permission. They can say, Pastor, we get how important this election is. We're not going to be mad at you if you talk about abortion, if you talk about the transgender agenda. We're not going to get upset with you if you talk about puberty blockers, if you talk about the way fentanyl is killing our young people. We're okay with that. We understand how important this moment is. We also understand that if we were to all kind of come together, I can do what I do, my friend can do what they do. But Pastor, if you just one word from you, just one Sunday where we do a voter registration drive, we may tip the scales in our county. Just one Sunday where you talk about the need to get out and vote early, we tip the scales in the early voting battle. And so I think just giving those pastors permission, hey, we're not going to get mad at you. We understand this isn't about politics. We understand that this isn't about Trump and Biden or anything like that. This is about kitchen table ideas. This is about things that are affecting us every day. This is about electric vehicle mandates. This is about them coming and taking our stoves with our gas stoves. This is about so much more than politics, and we understand that. We want to get in the game, Pastor, and so we give you permission to talk about it, especially during the season. Nobody's going to get mad at you. I think that's where you start.
All right, so let's talk about this voter drive thing. That's a big deal. How can a voter drive? I think we need to really script that a little bit. How can I talk about a voter drive in a way that the pastor won't feel, oh, we're not going to get involved in politics? But actually, what we're just saying, a lot of people might not be registered to vote, and we want to provide the service in the back of the church or, the fellowship hall. So let's just let people know that if they've never voted and they want to vote, they feel like it's important this year, it's their civic responsibility to really do something. And so we can't tell them who to vote for, but we can certainly tell them they ought to vote. And you can just register out there in the lobby. I mean, we got to take away the paranoia out of the subject, don't you think?
Absolutely, 100%. I led the voter registration drive at our campus. For those that don't know, I've been on staff with Jensen Franklin at Freedom Chapel since 2005. And so I still serve in that capacity at the church in addition to these things I'm doing with AFPI. I led our church through a voter registration drive. We have 8 campuses in 3 different states. And I thought, boy, I wonder how big an undertaking this is going to be. Well, I worked with Faith and Freedom, who provided all the people that we needed to come do the training. We literally, all we did was the same way we register people for any other event we do. We made that available at a table. We had the tablets or whatever we used, or even if you use paper and pen, you can get a person's information. You can help them go through the registration process with their phone. And so even if we didn't have tablets, even if we didn't have the technology to do it that way at the lobbies, we literally could have done it on people's phones and had them registered in 5 minutes or less. And so it really isn't a matter of like the process. I have a document that I've created that shows a 4-step process for any church in America to do a voter registration drive on a Sunday morning. And then it also has pictures of what that looked like, just a pod or a table. But it really isn't about the technology. It's not about how do you do all the logistics of it. It's just about a pastor saying, we're going to do this. It's in the lobby. It's in the foyer. It's on your way out. It'll take you 5 minutes. Stop by and do it. And that entire church not only can be registered, but people can find out if they're registered or not in that same 5-minute period and then get registered. We've taken all the guesswork out of it.
All right. So if I wanted to get that document, that PDF, is there a website or someplace they can go to so our audience can now become the agent of influence? What do they do? Where do they go?
Absolutely. Go to AmericaFirstPolicy.com. Go to AmericaFirstPolicy.com or AmericaFirstWorks.com, and we will give you everything you need to conduct a voter registration drive at your church. It's so simple. Every person, 5 minutes or less, they're in there and they're out.
All right, now I got another question for you while we're on the subject, and this will probably bleed over into the second half. People can also run for office, and a lot of people they don't know really. Look, face it, there are some people that are going to overshoot. It's always embarrassing for me when friends of mine that I inspire to get involved decide they're going to run for Congress. They've never been in politics, but they want to. They've never been in Hollywood, but they want an Academy Award. It's like, hey, why don't you just go for a state legislature? Explain to us what are the offices that a novice should be looking at in order to gain experience and apprentice their way into greater power in the government mountain.
Let me tell you where not to start first, because I happened to your whole conference at a table with the person that was there who his job literally is helping people with their campaigns. And he told me the biggest mistake people make is they say, I want to make a difference. I'm going to run for U.S. Senator. I'm going to run for a congressman. I'm going to run for a state seat. And he says they need to start at the school board level. They need to start at the city council level. They need to start at some kind of local level, get in, learn the process, make a difference there in your hometown. And so now when you go to run for something bigger, you have a track record. You have a level of experience. You understand the process. There's so much that goes into running for office at higher levels that involve money, that involve coalitions, that involve endorsements. It's a whole nother world. And it's not a world you can just walk in. Some do. I'm not saying it's never happened before, but the best thing to do is take the long view. Start where you are. You know the issues at your town. You know the issues in your school district. You know the issues in your city, in your community. You know what those, or serve on a commission or serve on a task force. Find a place to start. Get yourself involved. It's everything that you talk about with the 7 mountains, Lance. Get in and find your place. Get a footing, get a foothold, get a foot inside the door, make a difference at the local level, and then see what doors God opens up for you from there.
I'll tell you what, folks, stay with this conversation. Some of you are going to feel this heart-pounding moment like an altar call. You know what an altar call is? You ever answer that call where you feel like the Holy Ghost is convicting you? If you've never had it happen, you need it to happen. It's like when God puts his finger on your chest and says, I'm talking to you, and you know it. Your conscience bears witness, and you feel, oh no, oh no, oh no. Welcome to the call of God. Every one of us has been there. I don't want to do that. And then you realize fear is holding you back, and you know that's not God. We're going to come right back with my dear friend, Dr. Richard Rogers. We're going to talk about you in a political office. Don't leave. I want to take a moment to talk about the volatile financial time that we're in. And I want you to empower yourself with knowledge. My people perish for lack of knowledge, the Bible says. Visit lancewallnau.com/birch and get a free information kit. Consider discussing how to shift your 401k or your retirement account into a tax-sheltered gold and silver account. Why don't you go to lancewallnau.com/birch right now and take action for a secure future. Welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show. I'm talking with Dr. Richard Rogers, who is a national director for America First Policy Institute. And for those of you that don't know about this institute, it's a very powerful organization. Basically, I got introduced to it because it's Brooke Rollins who heads it up. She is holding the place cards for the next administration. Whoever governs as a Republican, she's got the staffing positions ready to roll. Many of them are still from the Trump administration, ready to go step back in. So it's a very powerful institution. And so that means that Richard Rogers is the National Director of Faith Engagement, is part of the future apparatus, I think, of how the church is mobilized in and around supporting this call of government. Let me bring Richard Rogers in. I'm going to go zero in on the call of God on our audience to engage and show up. But, you know, the Revolutionary War had a lot of bookkeepers and bootmakers and printing press operators and mill operators who became continental congressmen and colonels. And I mean, literally, we didn't have an army. So nobody really was a professional soldier. Nathaniel Greene from Rhode Island ends up becoming a great general, but he came in literally as an entrepreneur. So what I'm saying is a lot of us are getting drafted now into areas of service we never thought we would get involved with, and your lack of experience doesn't disqualify you. It might actually qualify you for this revolutionary battle we're in right now. So talk to me for a second, Richard, because I've never really understood this myself. Little confession. What does a city councilman do? So when you talk about a city council level, you might get involved with the school board. I guess school board, I kind of understand. What does a city council person do?
A city council person, they deal with issues at the city level, ordinances, things like, let me tell you one thing a city council can do. They can cause every massage parlor in the city to shut down at 10 o'clock at night, not stay open until 2 in the morning. They can work with the police and require that they do spot checks on places like that. like once a month to make sure that all the licenses are up to date, to make sure that they're legitimate. They have everything from like where there needs to be a traffic signal to where there needs to be a stop sign to issues that have to do with the celebration. I mean, they control. They work with other departments like zoning and things like that. They control on who gets to have this property, who doesn't get to have that property. They basically make sure that the city is safe, that the things are run in an orderly fashion, that the people are represented in the decisions that affect their daily lives. They have input, and when it comes to we're going to put more apartments here or more storage buildings here or not, working with the commissioners and all those. They're a very integral part of city government, just like the commissioners are, just like the zoning commission is. There's several places that a person, and most of the people in those positions, they're not official politician kind of people. They're just like that army you talked about: school teachers, bookkeepers, lawyers, attorneys, doctors, nannies. Every walk of life is represented. It can be represented simply by getting a petition, getting a certain number of names signed to say to support you, getting the minimum number of names. You are on the ballot. You get to go to debates.
Okay, hold on. All right, we went from all right. Hold it. We went from job description and what they do to how do they get there. So now let's go back to this question. All right, I you know what? I'm interested in that. I think I could do that. That's a place to get my feet wet. How do I go about becoming a city councilman?
You go down to City Hall. You take out the proper paperwork. You file just like at every level of government. You would file. You get your certain amount of signatures. You get those signatures certified, and then you are on the ballot.
Whoa! And then how do you campaign? I mean, what's a novice do for campaigning?
Well, bottom line is this: there are no lone rangers in the political world. You at some point have to start connecting with people. You have to speak for a certain number of people that share your values, and they have to commit to being a part of your team. You can't just show up someplace and speak. You have to have people that do what they did for you for the Courage Tour. They identify locations that will let them come share their message. They try to draw a crowd. They try to market and get those folks there. They have to be able to build a team around them, even if it's a small team. So it's not just something you say, I got a great idea, I'm going to run for office. No, political office is about representing the people. And there have to be people that feel like you would represent them in that position, and you coalesce. You bring people to the table.
Man, I'll tell you what, I can see why David Lane and these other guys go to those pastors and say, like Rob McCoy, you've already got a built-in constituency. You got a couple hundred people that'll vote for you for city council or whatever, or mayor even. So go for it. All right, now let me ask you a question. So I want to go for a state legislative role. What does the state legislator, well, you can get to be called a senator, and that's a state rep for 2 years usually. What do they do?
They do a lot. In Georgia, they helped pass abortion reform, heartbeat bill. They are the same thing that they do at the federal level at the state level. They decide what the laws of the land are at the state level. And so that's basically what they do. That's what Congress does. They're the lawmaking body government in a state. And so they play a huge role. They determine the same way a president determines the direction of a nation, and Congress determines the direction of a nation through the laws they pass, the bills they pass. The same thing at the state level. They determine the direction of a state. That's why you have some states that are mired in debt, that have policies that are very much social justice driven, and other states that they value fiscal responsibility and things like that. But they're supposed to reflect the values of that state, but they determine the direction of that state.
Pretty powerful. So once again, how many votes do you think you need to get in Georgia to become a state legislator?
One more than the opposition.
Well, just one more. And what does it cost to run for office like that? Do you know?
It doesn't cost anything to run for office theoretically, but you will need to be able to purchase ads. You'll need to be able to do things that you can't afford to do. That's why you have to be able to bring people unless you are independently wealthy, which obviously happens. Kelly Loeffler, independently wealthy. Donald Trump, independently wealthy. unless you're independently wealthy, you have to bring people to the table that have money that will invest in you and your vision. And so it's not an easy thing. The higher you go, from the city level to the state level, the more people you have to bring around you and the more resources that you will need.
Is there a natural progression there? I know we only got 4 minutes. I've got so many questions to ask. Is there a natural progression from school board or city council to running for some of those other offices that people take?
There really isn't. More a level of expertise, because you really, a zoning commissioner, they know more about land and about those kinds of things. When it comes to a city councilman, it's more about city ordinances. And so at different levels, some jobs require like a background in law. But if you'll research it, Google will share with you anything you need, the kind of requirements you need to have for any state in the land.
And let me just say something right now. So when I'm hearing my friend here, Richard, I'm thinking, oh no, maybe it's too complicated for me, law background or zoning or architecture or engineering. But listen, when I see these knuckleheads that are up there on the hill, and I'm looking at what they're saying, and I'm watching the news cycle of the extremes. Listen, you got what it takes, because the people that are there are no smarter than you are. They just got a little more passion and ideological crazy on them. So I want to encourage all of you to get totally involved. All right, so how by the way, Courage Tour, go to thecouragetour.com. I have to tell you about this because we're doing every one of these powerful swing states, and we're bringing revivalists, and we're bringing practitioners. I've had everyone from Marjorie Taylor Greene to Congressman Barry Loudermilk. I've got Jensen Franklin spoke for me already. What a blender we've got. Put him in the blender and whoa, the Courage Tour is powerful. It's like a great awakening, political revival on steroids, all within the parameters of a 501c3, remarkably. So here's what I want to ask you. How can people register to vote? Real quick, tell me what to tell them to do. They don't know. I bet you my audience doesn't know. Some of you watching aren't even sure you're registered. You might have moved even. All right, what do they do?
Go to faithandfreedom.com, go to AFPI, AmericanFirstPolicy.com. You can find out how to do it, or just go to your state website, the state that you're in, go to the state website and say, how do I vote? Boom, it'll take you right there. Put that in the search bar.
Okay, final big question. All right, here's our final round, bonus round. All right, doctor, I got a lot of people that don't want to get involved. My brother-in-law, Memorial Day weekend, they don't want to get involved with politics. What they mean is they don't want to talk about Trump. They don't want to talk about Biden. But you can still talk about policies that'll move a person's heart to vote. What do they got to do to avoid sounding political?
Talk about the values. Talk about the issues. It's not about the people. It's not about the GOP or the Democrats. Ask about, do they believe in abortion on demand in every trimester? Do they believe in rampant unchecked crime or law and order? Do they believe it's okay for boys and girls sports and men and women's sports? Is it okay for men and women to be in girls' bathrooms? Do they believe that transgender ideology or not? Do they stand with Israel or do they not? These are biblical values that we're asking people to talk about. These are core values of our nation. And so you don't have to talk about the politics. You just have to say, what side are you on? And you have to fight for your family. These are things that are going to affect our children and our grandchildren. Talk about that. Talk about the world they're going to have to grow up in. And that is going to be determined by the trajectory we take with this next election in 2024 in November.
So what you do is, this is a skill. It's an art. As you begin a little rapport, you have a conversation. And then you got any kids? I got kids. It's strange what's going on nowadays because there's full-grown men stripping down naked in front of 16, 15-year-old girls. And it's, are you aware of the fact that, right now it's becoming mandatory that the girls have to be in the presence of these guys, sharing lockers next door to each other? How do you feel about that? But what I'm saying is these are what you call conversation starters. William Wilberforce did it during the great destruction of slavery in the UK. I can't believe I'm out of time. Dr. Richard Rogers, how do people get in touch with you, brother?
R. Rogers at AmericanFirstPolicy.com. R. Rogers, AmericanFirstPolicy.com.
All right, we'll put that up in the lower thirds. Make sure our audience gets it. You're going to be with us on our next Courage Tour in Wisconsin. Don't miss it. Go to thecouragetour.com, and we're going to see you all there at this great awakening moment. God bless you.
America is under a spirit of delusion.
America has abandoned God.
Women are being used as pawns, which is exactly what the left does.
We had given the keys to our church to the government and said, government, you run this church. You make the decisions for me.
When we vacate the public square and leave that to chance, something fills the void.
When liberty hangs in the balance, and your children, your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews come to you and they say, where were you when tyranny knocked on our door? What are you going to tell them?
What's it actually going to take? Seriously, what kind of trigger point will cause the church just to come out of this zombie stupor and say, okay, that's it, I've had it?
The church shouldn't be in a bunker waiting on the rapture, but ought to be invading the mountains of influence for the glory of God.
We have to save our nation. We have to save our children.
We don't have the luxury of disunity. I don't have to agree with you on everything. We need to fight for this nation together. Together.
Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the absence of allowing fear to dictate the outcome.
My job for all of you is to find the unfinished assignment, because America is too young to die.
Fighting for liberty and freedom is difficult. It is hard. Choose your heart.
Where the mothers will suddenly see and perceive the organized threat against their little boys and their little girls, and that they will rise up.
Because you've got a nation to save. You've got grandchildren to save.
This is for the states we're going to. It's for the souls that are coming in.
And this courage tour is so important because we must stand. We must move into the public square.
And I heard the Lord say this over you tonight. Oh, we say now, you haven't seen anything yet. You haven't seen anything yet. You haven't seen anything yet. Just you wait. This is just the beginning.
Liberty and freedom are not free. Every veteran understands this. It requires a very significant level of sacrifice. What legacy are you willing to leave behind for the next generation?
Register today at thecouragetour.com. All seats are free. Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.